Dr. Thomas, we really appreciate all that you are bringing to our discussion. Here's a challenging area. There are people who may want their children to attend our Christian schools, God's Christian schools, who may not have a spiritual background, a biblical background, who may not have a biblical lifestyle. How do Christian schools address that?
Okay, that's a good question. Basically, who the board, the school board of the school, or the elder board, or the deacon board of the church, whoever is the policy making group for the school, they really have to decide up front what type of Christian school are they. Some churches want to be an evangelical school. And that means come as you are. You know, they want unchurched people, unsaved people, just whatever. Come on, but they have to sign off. They have to understand that we're teaching the gospel here. And your child is going to be exposed to the gospel, and this is what we do here. And they may not be living it, but they believe they'll train up the children, and then the children will go home and witness to the parents, or when the parents come in, they can share with the parents and like that. So that's like a rich harvest, they feel like. Some churches feel like what they call a discipleship school, where I want one parent to be a believer because we're going to be in partnership in training up this child and discipling this child. And so they ask that one, either the mom or dad, be a believer because they believe you have to be in partnership to do that. So it depends on what type of school you're wanting to have and what you feel like God has laid on the school's leadership's heart.
If the school is evangelical in nature, how would they deal with a situation where you may have two people who are parenting who may be same gender, or there may be
in our society that would be, it's very common in our society now. Basically, they would, if they're evangelical, they have to accept that. Now, they can share with that family that's not what they teach in their school, because they teach the Genesis account of one man, one woman if they're even a Christian school. But if it's evangelical in nature, they would have to accept whatever lifestyles the families of those students bring.
And we will depend on the Holy Spirit to do the rest.
Exactly, because what they have to understand and sign off on is this is what we believe in. And this is what we're going to be teaching every day. And so, but that's why some schools go with the discipleship, because if it's discipleship, you can say, no, we wouldn't accept any family like that. So it depends on what type of school you want to have.
And that's why there is school choice.
And that's why it's school choice. It's school choice. So it depends on what type of school you want to have.
Thank you for that, because that's a tough one for a school.
It's very hard because you want to be light in a dark world. But sometimes, like I said, some people feel like, no, we need to be in partnership, and we're unequally yoked if you're doing that and we're believing this. So that would be something that the leadership of the church or the school would have to decide.
Thank you for that answer.
And I think it's for both. It's needed for both.
Okay. That sounds really
It's just like being a Christian. I was a believer when I was teaching in public school.
Yes.
And I had all different types of family. And I felt, even though I couldn't outwardly proselytize, I felt like it's my life. I was living it in front of them. So.
And that means a lot.
It means a lot.
Regardless of the school.
Exactly.
Thank you for that. I'd like to turn a corner here and address the type of instruction
Mm-hmm.
that is needed now.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing more of our young people who have been placed in classes for special education.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, special education can encompass both gifted and talented,
Mhm,
as
mhm.
well
That's
as
true.
students who have
Mhm.
learning, emotional, or
Mhm.
physical
That's
disabilities.
true.
So, what can African American founded schools do to address learning differences?
That's very difficult because, like we said about the financial issues, you're talking about specialized programs there. And whether the child needs remediation or whether they're gifted, like you said, it all falls up under the special ed umbrella. And specialists cost money. One of the things that I really feel passionate about, a lot of our children that are in special ed should not be in special ed.
Wow.
They just have not been taught well.
Mhm.
And so, even more so why we need in our communities people that are willing to spend the time, the effort, the discipline, whatever it takes to move this child.
Mhm.
Sometimes they just need more practice.
Right.
You know, they just didn't catch on because they didn't have the foundational skills they needed. If they hadn't been read to when they were a child, if they hadn't been exposed, like I'm an early childhood educator. So a lot of times when I'm trying to teach, say E, well, and I say elephant. Well, if you've never seen an elephant, you don't have anything to connect that to. If you have not been to the zoo, if you
Right.
can't make those connections, and unfortunately, a lot of our children may not have the exposure. They may not have been read to, and things like that. And so sometimes it just takes some time to get caught up. And unfortunately, a lot of our children are just being placed in special ed, and they should not be. Sometimes they just need somebody to love on, to care about.
That's true.
You know, to care that you're going to get your work. You know, and sometimes that's all that is needed. But unfortunately, sometimes, for whatever reasons, they just don't have that, and they're getting lost in the system.
And that kind of aligns itself with discipline.
Mm-hmm,
There is an inordinate amount of a number of students, especially in the African American community, who are placed in situations where we have lots of out-of-school suspensions, particularly in our underserved communities and schools.
Exactly.
When Christian schools provide discipline, which is sometimes necessary, how should we do that? Should it be punitive or should it be restorative? What are your thoughts on that?
Discipline should always be restorative. I always try to go positive first because a lot of times our children need something just to work towards. You know, a lot of times I make sure that they know the rules first. You've got to, and let them take part in the rules. They got to understand the rules, the responsibilities, what the expectations. You have to teach that over and over again. And then there has to be rewards and consequences. Discipline is always about growing that child and helping that child be the best that they can be so that we can prepare them for the kingdom. To me, to be punitive, it's gone way out of hand. It's to correct. Even discipline is to correct, and it should be consequences. It should never be punitive.
Okay. Thank you for that, because sometimes we struggle, and before you know it, even sometimes church schools have, they have struggles with how to correct a child's behavior, sometimes when it's particularly
Exactly.
consistent.
In a church school or a Christian school, really all I should have to do is say, do you want me to call your mom or dad? Because we should be such on the same page about things, and the parents should understand the expectations of the school. That should be the least of our worries, discipline in a private Christian school, because everybody should understand the expectations, and we should get 100% support from the parents.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, because it's a hard subject, and sometimes it's both school and home. We just need those hard
It's
talk
school, home,
sometimes.
and it's the child. The child
Absolutely.
needs to be held responsible.
Yeah.
And that's why I said he should understand the consequences of not doing your work or disobeying a teacher. And it should be understanding in a Christian school that God has placed that teacher over you with your parents' permission. And so it should be respect. The Bible teaches respecting authority. And that's what the world doesn't do anymore. Nobody respects anybody. But in God's hierarchy, kids respect adults and kids respect their teachers. And that should be automatic. It should be understood from day one. Because you can't teach or train someone if they're disrespecting you. It can't happen.
Right.